Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Meetinghouse of Provincetown, where we affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and where we support each other on our spiritual search for truth and meaning. My name is Reverend Kate Wilkinson, and I am so glad that you have joined us this morning. Welcome to those of you in the room, and welcome also to those of you joining us on our live stream. This morning, our service is entitled Comfort Zone, and it's dedicated to my nephew, who just started his first semester of college. And I remember how far I was stretched outside of my comfort zone my first semester, so I have been thinking about that theme lately. Before we begin our worship service, I have just a few announcements to share. Apologies to those of you who tried to tune in via our live stream last week. We had a few technical glitches. This is bound to happen from time to time when you are relying on technology so heavily, but we thank you for your patience, and please know that those of you watching from home are very important to us, and we're working on it. And speaking of those of you watching from home, I want to give a special shout out to Sheila Ryan, who is watching at home today. Sheila, we are wishing you a very happy birthday month, and we hear that you are celebrating a little early with your daughter Wendy, and we want to add our love to the mix for this milestone birthday. So we miss you and Coley and think of you often. Our Stewardship Talk Soup is coming up on Sunday, October 16th at 2 o'clock. This informal congregational meeting will be held on Zoom, so the soup part is optional. But we hope you will join us to talk about how we sustain this spiritual community and also what opportunities we have to reach those who need us now that we are both in person and online. It's kind of an exciting time, so we hope you will join us for that conversation. As I mentioned last week, we are hoping to lead a new member class this fall. So if you have been considering becoming a member of the Meetinghouse or learning more about it, please let us know. The class is a great way to get to know people, to learn how the Meetinghouse is run, and to learn a little bit more about Unitarian Universalism in general. Once we have at least 5 people signed up, we will schedule a class. It might be in person, it might be online. It really depends on who signs up and what your needs are. We already have a list going, so please leave your contact information with me or with Kenneth in our office. We'd be so pleased to have you as a member. And here's something I'm really looking forward to. The Provincetown Recreation Department is once again hosting their Halloween Greet and Treat. This will be over at Mata Field on Halloween, which is a Monday this year, from 4 to 5:30. Setup is at 3:30, and we are going to be setting up an amazing display, so I hope you'll join us. Our theme this year is Winter Wonderland. We were really cold last year when we dressed up as farmers, so I picked a theme where we could wear our snowsuits. So let me know if you have like an artificial Christmas tree or an antique sled, or if you're good at making paper snowflakes. We want to transform the back of my car into a winter wonderland. And we also need candy to hand out. So if you can contribute a bag of wrapped treats, please drop them off here at the Meetinghouse anytime between now and Halloween. And we promise not to eat them. But let's help make Halloween special and safe for the children of Provincetown this year. And speaking of being cold, any hardy souls attending in person, we invite you to stay for a while after our service today for coffee and good conversation out on our lawn. You can get your coffee on the way out and just hold on to your hats out there. It'll be a lot of fun. And any of you who knew longtime member Dana Noble, we hope you will come back at 1 o'clock for his memorial service right here in the sanctuary. this is part of our sacred task as a spiritual community, remembering and honoring each other when we die. Let us now continue by affirming our community's covenant. I invite you to repeat each line after me. Love is the spirit of this meeting house. This is our great covenant. To dwell together in peace. To seek the truth in love. And to help one another. At this time, I invite Kathleen to light our chalice for us. And as we light our chalice here in the sanctuary, I invite those of you watching at home to light a candle wherever you are. And in that way, we can feel connected, even while we are apart.
Chalice lighting by Brian Keeley. In times of darkness, we stumble towards the tiny flame. In times of cold, we seek the warming fire. In times of repression, we reach for the lamp of truth. In times of loss, we pray for the comforting light. In times of joy, we light a candle of celebration. Spirit of life, as we kindle this light, help us find what we need today.
Please join me now in a spirit of meditation and prayer. If you have a joy or a sorrow on your heart this morning, you are welcome to light a silent candle during the prayer or at any time during the service at the table to the right of the pulpit. And there is a journal there to record your thoughts and prayers. Now, as we enter into our prayer time, I lift up that so many of you are mourning the death of Susan Howe this morning. This was a terrible tragedy in the Truro community, and there is really just no way to make sense of it. I want you to know that I am here to talk if any of you would like a supportive ear or shoulder. I offer so much love to Susan's friends and family and neighbors and all of the first responders who were involved on Friday night. I hold you in my heart. We also lift our prayers for all of those in the path of Hurricane Ian's destruction. This recovery will take many years, and so we need to ready ourselves to be a support team to those who are suffering. Our prayer this morning is by Ted Loader. Ted was a Methodist minister who was known for his political activism and his passion for social justice, including marching with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. His prayer is called Pry Me Off Dead Center. O persistent God, deliver me from assuming your mercy is gentle. Pressure me that I may grow more human, not through the lessening of my struggles, but through an expansion of them that will undam me and unbury my gifts. Deepen my hurt until I learn to share it and myself more openly and my needs more honestly. Sharpen my fears until I name them and release the power I have locked in them and they in me. Accentuate my confusion until I shed those grandiose expectations that divert me from the small, glad gifts of the now and the here and the me. Expose my shame where it shivers, crouched behind the curtains of propriety, until I can laugh at last through my common frailties and failures, laugh my way toward becoming whole. Deliver me from just going through the motions and wasting everything I have, which is today, a chance, a choice, my creativity, your call. Oh, persistent God, let how much it all matters pry me off dead center. So if I am moved inside to tears or sighs or screams or smiles or dreams, they will be real. And I will be in touch with who I am and who you are and who my sisters and brothers are. Amen.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Fuente de amor, ven hacia mí, y al corazón cántale tu compasión. Sopla volar, sube en la mar, hasta moldear la justicia de la vida. Arrégame, libérame, fuente de amor, ven a mí, ven a mí.
The reading this morning is entitled A Day at the Lawn, written by Eric Walker Wickstrom. Once upon a time, there was a girl named Wendy. She loved grass. Footnote here, lawn. Okay. What can I say? She loved grass. She loved the feel of it between her toes. She loved the smell of it when it was freshly mown. She loved its bright green color. Wendy loved grass more than just about anything. One day, her family decided to go to the beach. Wendy wasn't too sure about it. Her older brother said, "Come on, we can go swimming." And her mom said, "And we can collect rocks and shells together." And her dad said, "And you can bury me in the sand." It sounded like fun, so they all piled into the car and off they went. When they got to the beach, it sure looked great, like nothing Wendy had ever seen. But when she first touched the sand, it was way, way, way too hot. "This isn't cool like grass," she said. "I wish this sand was grass." Now, Wendy had a good luck fairy who followed her around, and he heard her wish and decided to grant it. With a flash, all of the sand turned into grass. Now it was her family's turn to be not too sure. Wendy, of course, was delighted. "I guess I won't get buried today," said her dad. "That's okay," said Mom. "Let's collect some shells." Everyone went down to where the water lapped the edge of the grass. There were polished rocks and beautiful shells lying all about. They all set to work looking for the shiniest or the biggest or the most colorful. Everyone except Wendy. "Ouch," she said. "Ouch, each." The rocks and shells hurt her feet. "I wish these rocks were soft like grass," she thought to herself, and as soon as she did, her good luck fairy, who could hear her thoughts as well as her words, made it so. The rocks and shells turned to grass too. The family looked at one another. Well, they said, "At least they're swimming." Everyone laid their beach towels on the grass and changed into their bathing suits. "Last one in is a rotten egg," Wendy's older brother cried, and he ran into the waves, followed closely by Wendy's sister, their delighted squeals trailing behind. Wendy followed tentatively, but when her toe touched the water, she said, "Yuck, too wet and too cold." This time she didn't even have to think it. The fairy changed the water into grass without her even having to ask for it. Everyone turned to her and said, "Wendy." But what was she to do? Her family was very understanding. They were, after all, Unitarian Universalists. So they decided to make the best of it. "Let's have lunch," said Mom and Dad. So they got out their picnic basket, found a nice spot on the now wide lawn, spread out the checkered cloth, and they all set to it. Wendy was in heaven. After all, didn't she love grass more than just about anything? But she had to admit she was beginning to feel a bit bored, and something just didn't feel right. After all, everywhere she looked, there was nothing but grass. And all the sounds of the beach, the waves, the seagulls, all of it, they'd gone too. Grass was nice, but maybe not so much when that's all there was. "Well," said her mom, "we went to the beach and we're at a lawn. This isn't the way it's supposed to be." "What do you mean?" Wendy asked. Her dad said, "You made it all the same. The sand, the rocks, the water, each was different, and you made them all the same because their differences made you feel uncomfortable. But those differences also made them special and beautiful, and without them, there's a whole lot missing. In fact, everything that makes this place what it is missing. And that means that you are missing out on everything you really came here for." Wendy thought about this for a while. She did want to collect rocks and shells. She'd seen some really beautiful ones. And the water was cold, but her brother and sister looked like they were having a lot of fun. And the idea of burying her father in the sand was too good to pass up. I wish it were all back the way it was, she thought. And the good luck fairy made her wish come true. Wendy and her family had the best time that day. She still loves grass more than just about anything, but she's learned to love other things too. And she's come across some things that she doesn't like much, but that's okay too. But she's never ever wanted everything to be the same again, because she knows that things are supposed to be different, each thing as it is, and that exploring new things makes life so much more fun.
Thank you. Now is our time in our service where we take a collection for the ongoing support of this Meetinghouse and our shared ministry. As we enjoy a musical reflection, we welcome your donations here in the sanctuary or online through PayPal or Venmo. You can find that information on our website, uumh.org. Although we're also having some website difficulties, so maybe not today. Try again, though. On and off site, your offerings will now be gratefully received.
When there's light in the soul, there is beauty in the person. When there's beauty in the person, there is harmony in the home. When there is harmony in the home, there is honor in the nation. When there's honor in the nation, there is peace in the world. Sing it in your heart. When there's light in the soul, there is beauty in the person. When there's beauty in the person, there is harmony in the home. When there is harmony in the home, there is honor in the nation. When there's honor in the nation, there is peace in the world. When there's light in the soul, there is beauty in the person. When there's beauty in the person, there is harmony in the home. When there is harmony in the home, there is honor in the nation. When there's honor in the nation, there is peace in the world.
Thank you. I followed the news this week as rescuers searched for 49-year-old Hillary Nelson, who disappeared while skiing down Mount Manaslu in Nepal. I so hoped she would be found alive. That is not usually how it works when you fall off the side of a 27,000-foot Himalayan mountain. Hillary was a famed U.S. extreme climber and skier, and she knew the risks of skiing down the world's 8th highest mountain. After 2 days of searching in bad weather, rescuers located her body using a helicopter. Hillary was a risk taker, a daredevil. In 2012, she became the first woman to summit the highest mountain in the world, Everest, and its adjacent Lhotse within 24 hours. 6 years later, she returned to Lhotse and made the first ski descent of the mountain, which earned her the National Geographic Adventurer of the Year award. In an Instagram post last week, Hillary said her latest climb had been deeply challenging because of incessant rain and dangerous conditions. I haven't felt as sure-footed on Manaslu as I have on past adventures into the thin atmosphere of the high Himalaya, she wrote. These past weeks have tested my resilience in new ways. She talked about being homesick. But then she remembered why she had come. Yesterday, we ended our summit bid when we decided it was too dangerous to move from C3 to C4, she wrote. We decided to ski down from C3, knowing that it would mean carrying our skis all the way back up the mountain, if we try again for the summit. It was the best thing we could have done. As soon as I made the first turn in the sticky hot POW in total whiteout, all the weight and seriousness that had been plaguing me this whole trip faded into the background. We skied about 4,500 feet of the 6,000-foot descent to BC. It was full of shenanigans, rappelling over seracs with our skis on, posing for pictures with climbers going uphill, laughing, racing, and generally just finally being present and actually seeing what I have been seeing for weeks but not absorbing. It amazes me how in these raw and remote places we can find deep connections and friendships. A friend of hers said, and I don't know if this quote was before or after her death, a friend of hers said, the resilience she had to be out of her comfort zone and laugh in the face of dire situations speaks to her positivity. Now, some of us might totally admire Hillary and her achievements. Some of us might think she was crazy. She had 2 children, and yet she took this risk, this incredible risk. It's really clear that, stretched or not, her comfort zone was entirely different than mine, that is for sure. I am not a thrill seeker. In fact, I'm kind of the opposite. I get nervous in the car. I always wear a helmet when I ride my bike, which is only on the bike trail. I like comfort. I like familiarity. I'm one of those people who likes to go back to the same place every year on vacation. But once in a while, I stretch myself and I see the value of reaching beyond my comfort zone. Most of you know that Lisa and I went to Italy this month. It was a long-awaited trip. We saved up for it for a long time, and it was supposed to happen in 2020, but, well, COVID. But we finally went. And I was nervous about it. I don't know Italian. Lisa is allergic to garlic. We haven't really traveled much since the pandemic. And the last time I was in Italy was in college, and I found it very hard to navigate there. So in planning the trip, I took some steps to make me feel comfortable enough to go on this adventure. It was outside my comfort zone, but I put some things in place that would make it feel less risky. I found a company in Italy that made all of the travel arrangements for us. They provided rides to and from the airport and train stations. They booked our tickets, and they got us skip-the-line passes at the museums. They picked our hotels for us, and in Venice, they even provided someone to meet us at the train station, order us a water taxi, go in the water taxi with us right to the spot on the canal to get off, which was nearest our hotel, and walk us to our hotel. At first, this felt like overkill. But when we got to the place where the water taxi was to drop us off, there was already a boat tied up there making deliveries. Now remember, there are no roads in Venice, only canals and alleyways. Our guide spoke rapid-fire Italian with both the water taxi driver and the delivery boat driver. They were obviously negotiating something, but we had no idea what. Then he turned to us and explained in English that we would pull alongside the delivery boat and we should crawl over it to the bank of the canal. Fortunately, he took our suitcases, since it was quite a feat just to crawl over the boat with our free hands. And then he led us down a rabbit warren of little alleyways until we reached our hotel. Thank God he was there. We never would have found it. Now, there were other moments in Italy that stretched my comfort level as well. Did you know you have to pay to use the bathroom there? Exact change only? That was an adventure to figure out. You buy bus tickets at the tobacco shop. Contrary to the guidebooks, you are expected to tip at restaurants. Our guide filled us in on that one on day 2. And you need to cover your shoulders when entering a church. It was 89 degrees in Rome, and I was wearing a tank top. Our guide pulled us into the gift shop and picked out a €5 scarf for me to buy to cover up so we could go in the churches. Don't pay to go to the bathroom, another guide told us. Go into a bakery, get a cappuccino, use their bathroom, same price, nicer bathroom. Everything was a learning experience. Every conversation was an occasion for miscommunication and misunderstanding. Every time we got onto a bus on our own, it was totally possible that we were going in the wrong direction. And yet, everything was exciting. Every conversation was an occasion for connection and joy. Every time we got off the bus at the correct destination, we felt proud of ourselves. And glad we hadn't spent the extra money on a taxi. Italy was amazing. Venice was amazing. Rome and Florence were amazing. The history and the art and the culture were so rich and so ancient. We ate fried artichokes in a 500-year-old restaurant. We saw the David sculpture up close and the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. We walked through the Colosseum and the Pantheon, drove through vineyards where they grow grapes to make Prosecco and Chianti. We saw where Marco Polo grew up, took a gondola ride at sunset. None of that would we have experienced if I had stayed in my comfort zone. I asked some colleagues what sources they would use if they were preaching about comfort zones. And one colleague said to look at the educational framework used by experiential educators, like folks who run ropes courses. They said that in this field there are concentric circles labeled comfort, growth, and panic zones. Once in middle school, I did a ropes course as part of a team building day for my class. We went out to one of the harbor islands from Boston. Thompson Island hosts an outward bound education center. And their tagline is learn, thrive, grow. It was hell. I remember one part of the course had this huge barrel suspended between two trees. You know, like those giant spools that they use for big cables? My entire class had to get over the spinning barrel onto the other side without touching the edges of the spool. And it was pretty high off the ground, so it was tricky. And we figured out how to lift a small, sporty kid over the spool first, and he made it to the other side fairly easily. And then the stronger kids worked to hoist the others up one by one, up and over, and the small kid caught them and eased them to the ground on the other side. But whenever someone touched the side, everyone would have to come back and start over. Now, I hung back, not looking forward to two of my classmates trying to lift me. I was one of the heaviest, least athletic girls in the class. And when it came to be my turn, it wasn't as simple as with the little guy. It was a struggle. I was heavier to lift, and I kept touching the sides, sending everyone back to the starting point. Soon my class had a strategy. Send one easy person over who could guide the rest of us, and then start with the hardest person next, AKA me. No use in having everyone get over only to have me sending them all back. So for the next 15 minutes, otherwise known as eternity, my whole class worked at getting me over this stupid spool. I begged the adult leader to just let me sit this one out. They said no, the whole class had to do it. Finally, on probably the 20th try, I went over without touching the sides. The little guy caught me on the other side, and they began to send everyone else to join us. The last to climb over was a confident, athletic, tall, skinny person who could just kind of launch themselves over because they had no one on their side to help lift them up. It was humiliating. It was frustrating, and it took forever. And we did it. We were proud of ourselves as a group and as individuals. The class was proud of me, if you can believe it. And although it was entirely embarrassing, I felt closer to those boys who had been giving me 10 fingers to hoist me up, and the one on the other side who had to guide me over to safety. We were bonded now in a way that only overcoming adversity together can bond you. But the day wasn't over. Next came the ropes part of the course. Oh my God, another horror. The leaders put me into a harness and then pointed at a log suspended 20 feet in the air. There were guide ropes to hold on to, but it was basically a second-story balance beam. This was an individual challenge instead of a group one, which I appreciated, but I was no better at it. My legs were quivering so much I almost couldn't control them. That's why we call it the Elvis walk, my guide called to me. You've got this. And you know what? I did. I wanted to quit 1,000 times, but the guide asked me to take just one more step and see, and then another. He was patient and kind and encouraging. It was the scariest thing I had ever done, and boy, was I proud of myself when I finally got to the other side. I looked up the Thompson Island Outward Bound website this week just to refresh my memory about the setting to tell this story. Challenges are how we grow our knowledge base, said the woman in a video. How we improve our skill base. How we build our sense of agency, our identity as a learner, as a competent person. We have to provide support in the early stage of that challenge, but by the end, the young person has to feel that they can tackle this on their own. Turns out all that hell was intentional. Those jerks planned this. I watched another video. They actually talked about the concentric circles Comfort zone is you snuggled up on your couch with hot cocoa, watching TV, the instructor said. It's where we feel safe. But there's not a lot of learning happening in your comfort zone. On the other end of the spectrum, we have the panic zone, where your body is going into fight or flight response. Learning doesn't really happen there either, because you're in survival mode. But in between that is a sweet spot that we call your challenge zone and your learning zone. At Outward Bound, that's where we try to enter with our students. I think back on that day from middle school, and it really felt like we kids were figuring everything out on our own as a team. And we were, but there was always a trusted adult creating some feeling of safety and support. I did feel panic, but there was that harness if I fell, and the person below me on the ground shouting instructions and encouragement. I didn't realize at the time that they were intentionally pushing us out of our comfort zone, but not too far. When we were starting to drift into that panic zone, they would draw us back with encouraging words and jokes and their presence, so that we stayed in that middle area, the learning zone, the growth zone. In a different context, Buddhist nun and teacher Pema Chodron addresses the same 3 zones in her book, Welcoming the Unwelcome. The comfort zone is where we can find calm and ease, she says. We can take a break, breathe. Comfort zones aren't bad or wrong, they're necessary. But comfort zones become unhealthy when we stay too long, when we don't trust ourselves to venture out, or we put up walls, shut people out, because we just want to feel safe. When we stay too long, our comfort zone shrinks, she explains. More on the outside feels scary and unknown. We start to search only for certainty. The more often we move into the learning zone, the more our comfort zone increases, the more we are able to experience without panic. Learning pushes us outside our comfort zone and allows us to see things in new ways, have new experiences, and engage with different people. Learning does not mean the absence of fear, she says. Instead, we embrace the challenging and fearful and work towards overcoming. We start to see who we truly are and all that we are able to accomplish. We begin to free ourselves of habitual patterns. This challenge zone may still be a place where we don't like it, but we have an appetite for it because it's where the growth happens. Sometimes we don't recognize the learning zone or the challenge zone as a positive thing while we're in it. Sometimes it's not until years later that we say, hey, remember that really awful time in my life? I actually grew as a person through that experience. Transformation does not happen in the comfort zone, but it happens in the learning zone. Now, unnecessary risk is when we push ourselves too far, too fast, or into something that's not going to benefit us. Distinguishing between the panic zone and the learning zone can be challenging at times. The first step is understanding what level of fear your own nervous system can manage without moving toward overwhelm. And another step is having a support system around you for times of challenge and having a set of coping skills to support you. Now, this is where I want to recognize that being uncomfortable can be a powerful signal from our bodies that something isn't right. If we get a bad vibe from someone, it might be important to listen to that gut feeling they may not be a safe person for us to be around. Or it might be that we are experiencing someone different than ourselves, and that is causing a little bit of discomfort, but not danger. It's up to us to interpret and examine these gut feelings, right? Is this prejudice? Is this wisdom? Is this being worldly? We know there are a lot of pickpockets on the Ponte Vecchio, or unworldly. We clutch our purse whenever we see someone who doesn't look like us. As we start to go into our learning zone more and gain trust that we will know where the line of unnecessary risk is, our comfort and learning zones grow. And in turn, we are able to push ourselves a little further, find and take more opportunities we didn't even know existed, and create more space to find and be who we really are. And the thing about zones is they aren't static. Take this spiritual community, for example. Hopefully, this meeting house, these people, are a place and a group that brings you comfort, something that brings you safety and ease and familiarity. But also, sometimes being a part of religious community stretches us. We get uncomfortable here. We use religious language that triggers memory from our childhood, or we talk about racism kind of a lot. And we talk about feelings a lot. I wonder how many of you will resonate with my friend Lynn. When I first started coming to church, she said, I squirmed and squirmed through the spoken candles of joy and concern. Part of it was, it's hard hearing about other people's pain, but most of it, I think, was me being an uptight wasp. I'd get embarrassed for people for putting their pain out there. I'd cringe for them and was confused about what I was supposed to do with this information about their pain. How was I supposed to help? Was I supposed to fix it? But Lynn goes on. As I kept coming to church, though, and sitting through the candles, well, it was really more like getting through the candles, it started to become easier and easier for me to sit still and then to listen and finally just hold what was being said, regardless of the manner it was being said or if it should be said. I started being able to shut off my mind and just hold it, the emotion. That weekly practice of just listening to tough emotions has helped me so much, she said. Now, interacting with others who are in pain, I am so much more able to just share it without judging or thinking how I can fix or getting embarrassed. Still, of course, hard to hear people in pain, she says, and I'm so clueless how to help, but I'm so much better at getting myself out of the way and just being there, listening, caring, sitting still. And that, I have realized in itself, can be helpful sometimes. So sitting in that discomfort, the challenge zone for a while, actually helped Lynn learn how to be a better listener, a better friend, a better support to those around her. She grew as a person. She grew her spiritual life. And she grew her comfort zone so that now she's not so antsy when she's listening to people's joys and sorrows like we do when we share on Tuesday nights in our Zoom coffee hour. And maybe you have grown your comfort zone here. Maybe you have grown your capacity to hear language for God that you wouldn't use yourself. Or maybe now you can have a conversation about race without wanting to flee the room. Or you can listen to someone's joy or sorrow without judging or wondering when it's going to be over. Maybe you have grown your capacity for introspection or being in relationship with others or just being silent for a while. You don't have to take a big trip to challenge your comfort zone. You don't have to climb up on a balance beam 20 feet in the air or ski down the face of a Himalayan mountain. We all have daily opportunities to step into the learning zone, talking to someone we don't know, trying a food we've never tried, participating in a ritual. It's not about being a daredevil. It's about not being stuck. It's about growing our hearts like the Grinch. It's about recognizing that we are on a journey. Life is a spiritual journey, and we will not always know the language, but we will always be glad we went. Amen, and blessed be. It's become our practice to pose a question based on the theme of the service each week. It can be a topic for sharing out on our lawn today or with friends during the week. If you want to delve deeper into this conversation, we hope that you can join us Tuesday at 5 o'clock at our Zoom coffee hour. Our question for this week is, tell us about a time you left your comfort zone. What was the result? Tell us about a time you left your comfort zone. What was the result? I'll end with these closing words. O persistent God, deliver us from just going through the motions and wasting everything we have, which is today a chance, a choice, our creativity, your call. O persistent God, let how much it all matters pry us off dead center. So if we are moved inside to tears or sighs or screams or smiles or dreams, they will be real, and we will be in touch with who we are and who you are and who our sisters and brothers are. Go in peace.